Okay, cool. We'll just try twice to go live. Mystical states, entering, moving around in the idealistic world. What got me on this idea was thinking about. I was listening to Adam Crabtree with Jeffrey Mishlove. And, he had this interesting moment where he was talking about the necessity. He's talking about the group mind, and we're in a group trance, and they're trance keepers and trance breakers. Because every day, by his idea, you're basically moving uh, from trance to trance to trance throughout your day. This got me kind of fired up on that. Basically, if people don't uphold the trance, the illusion, it starts to fumble and crumble. But that also means you can adjust it. And being able to enter deeper aspects of the mind is like mining. It is hard because it requires consistency of train of thought. I mean, a lot of people will just go like, "Yeah, I can't think about this anymore." But if you can, like, meditation is a great start. You're thinking about nothing, which is much easier than holding. I think even in some meditations, you're holding the thought. I guess that's like watching your breath. You're holding that thought, so you're trained to be able to do this longer. But this is very. It's only in certain states I'm able to be reflective, and I want to be able to try to pass on wisdom, which requires putting the other person in a trance almost, or like getting them into the idea that you're trying to communicate. Persuasion. And language is such a barrier for it. Like, I wish, we just had subconscious knowing to a larger degree where I could actually, like, deal with thought in some way. You can notice it. But anyway, the struggle is taking those super high ideal concepts, translating it into words, or just like scenarios. Because one thing I noticed from this previous talk is that materialists generally have to narrow their worldview in order for their worldview to make sense and able to be able to experience it. That's why materialists generally can't speak about God or higher ideals or these things, because there's that conceptualization has to be made physicalist, which is, it just makes it harder to do. I mean, I guess it's following the scientific method, but yeah. But it's like, how do you teach somebody to enter a flow state? How do you paint that mental image that you're describing to somebody? How do you trigger it on and then turn it off when you're done, or realize, like, because I've had trances that go on for days, not uh, drug based, but just like I'll be stuck in one mindset, one experiential feeling bubble for like 3 or 4 days. It breaks. It kind of goes along with the weather sometimes, or I guess like solar mechanics, the solar system mechanics. Trying to paint this out just from the top of my head as I go is insane. We're only 5 minutes in, for God's sakes. But like smoking, for example, I think creates a trance. That's why it's addictive. It's like you want to be in that trance zone. And the part about comedians breaking trances, like you could show somebody how comedy is good for human psychology, which is a crazy stretch. Like you really got to you got to draw that web way across to make somebody understand what you're saying. Like even in the news, like if you're trying to explain a scenario succinctly and like our new we generally like you gotta get alternative news to get like a full breakdown, a full layout. But you're trying to persuade someone there to see things from how they saw it. They're not. It's a saw. It's a past tense, which is interesting. Most of this is past tense. Uh, Speaking about the moment is purely experience. Like you can't really label it. That's a good morning. But like, yeah, I woke up frustrated and flustered because like I have it. This is also ties into dream recall. And you're trying to recall a dream in the moment, but different parts will pop up as you sit in the moment doing that recall. And like you want to make sense of it. I think that's why like a lot of Eastern mysticism is just like don't even play around with just experience. Don't over like the Western mystical tradition is really what has tried to write this down and build with the mind. Which is fun. It's cool. Like this is the roots of philosophy, wisdom. You're trying to forge wisdom specifically, as opposed to just like knowledge and facts and opinions and like scenarios and like let's call this mystical state like spoken reflection. And what you're having to do is look at your mind, think while you think, and try to like paint while you're doing that, using imagery and allegory and all the different literary devices. Like there have been books that have been able to crack me open like that. Like 1984 was like a dark one. That's a dark book to read. Like I just remember thinking, oh, this I'm getting way off topic. Yeah, 1984, Winston's just in the cafe. I think he was running into the idea that the state cannot take on ideas, and the state interferes with our life patterns and existence from a place of a non-physical creation. I mean, there are physical buildings and people who enforce that state's what do you even call that? So the state is like an entity. That's what it is. Okay, so there are people that enforce it and everything, but it's not something in and of itself. I think there's some Platonic dialogues about the state that would really tie in well here. But I think this is, yeah. Sorry about that. Talking about trance breaking. That was like a couple minutes. Well, that's a great example of a struggle of trying to explain these states. People will walk in and need something done, or like people's attention will shift, and then you have to reconstruct your you have to reconstruct your freaking literary imagery and everything. And, oh my god, this is why people write books. But yeah, wow, that just hit me. But I appreciate the spoken word a lot more. It's, I get it. Like if you're able to read, if somebody has a good posture of their like energy and what they're trying to communicate, you can get something so much better than a book. Like Jordan Peterson's always like doing like these hand dances and things when he's trying to articulate his words. I think it's very cool. Mystical states. So I'm trying to apply this to like healing because like I think most people's problems are mental health, realistically. Like mental health, and then that declines into like other manifestations in the physical world. But it all starts mentally. And in order you can do distant healing, like simply just through like word, but you really have to know how to like think of it like Tetris. It's that moving and falling blocks, and you have to arrange them as they fall. Some will just pass, show up later. You have to like shift live perceptions versus their reflection upon perception, and their ability to conceptualize how they're interpreting what you're bringing out. Like generally, you'll just like if you're having a dialogue kind of like with somebody, they're not really aware of what you're trying to do with language, but they're just listening to what you're saying. They'll generally just respond without follow up, which is interesting. Like, how do we move from receiving to projecting? Because that isn't this like people talk about projection as like a bad thing, but projection is like how you make yourself appear in other people's minds. And crazy. Mystical states, man. You gotta love them. You gotta love them. It's like in the higher thoughts, it's pleasant to reflect upon them. And it has like nectar. And it's, I don't think people realize that. And if they did, there would be much less mental health problems. Like if you're able to, the way I've always been able to like keep myself sane about my mental problems without a therapist or anything is to like flip the perception on itself. Like another example is like while you're playing music and you're remembering what you have to play next. This is like building on that mental muscle, that specific. That'd be cool to have like a map of mental muscles. It's like fortitude, oh man, etc., etc. It's really hard for me to lay down a long 20-minute coherent thought. The books, man. The book is the only way. I don't. I'd also like to understand why that is. Uh, let's see if we can get this to work. Probably not. Uh, but this can become extremely frustrating because there's like a whole created thought form that like I'm experiencing it, bouncing around in, and like feeling the different tendrils and dendrites like firing off against each other. Not literally, not in your brain, literally, but like it's a that's a analogy. I gotta get better with analogies. This thing is to this thing is this thing to this thing. Son of that tobacco all over. Son of a gun. And the hard part is to like, so as I'm doing this, I'm trying to speak and do that experiential gestalt, but I lose my train of thought because it's so subtle. I should honestly record these and do pause breaks as opposed to the live no one watching like God intended. Heavy, heavy, son. Right. So we're talking about mental health and mystical states. When you're able to enter into a reflective state where you're looking back on your body mind, we'll call it, you're much more able to detach from the bad emotions or whatever you're experiencing. And they just detach and float off. And then you're on. Because the train of thought all has to do with like stress levels. Like, the more stressed you are, the smaller and smaller your trances become. It makes me think about glitching. I'm wondering what the word glitch really means. What up, Kitty Cat? Yeah. Sorry, I'm squishing you. Ugh. Slippery place. Good old glitches. A glitch is a short lived technical fault, such as a transient one that corrects itself, making it difficult to troubleshoot. So, like, the glitch, man. we glitch a lot, and there's a way to like observe those glitches, and then you can stick that in your memory bank. And, yeah. See, I also have this weird thing where like I'll do different voices and tonalities with people, and just like like uh, shift to a new puzzle piece of trance. Define what a trance is. Definition's been good. Oh, why'd you close? No. Um, Absence of response to external stimuli. Interesting. So trance is not the right word that I'm. Or that's not the right. Interesting. That makes sense. Trance mediums. I wish. So they call it daydream, daze, stupor, haze. State of consciousness above trance. What would that be like? Yeah, that's where you no longer have perception, which interesting. Well, I guess that mindfulness would be mindful, where you're aware and reflecting. How do you freaking map? How do you map this stuff? That's crazy. See, that's the other problem is words are. I'm using a lot of subjective wording. Yes. Subjective diction. Uh, yeah, it'd be good to read a book on the states of consciousness, like an anthology that just lists them out chapter by chapter. It's like what is that transition from waking to sleeping or sleeping to waking. Yeah, Adam Crabtree's definition of trance is much different than what's listed on the interwebs from the Google Eyes machine. Interesting. Well, thank you for watching. We will continue that maybe later today.